The fastest way to change your finances is not by chasing more money, it's by taking complete control of the money you already have. Because right now, whether you realize it or not, a portion of your income is being wasted every single month on things that don't actually improve your life. And the problem is, it doesn't feel like waste in the moment. It feels small, harmless, justified. A quick order here, a subscription there, a convenience purchase because you're tired or busy. Individually, none of these decisions seem like a big deal. But combined, they quietly drain your financial progress. So the first step is awareness. And this is where most people resist because it sounds simple, almost too simple to matter. But tracking your spending is the foundation of everything. For the next 30 days, every single dollar that leaves your account needs to be recorded. Not estimated, not rounded, not guessed. Exact numbers. Because the moment you see where your money is actually going, you remove the illusion. You stop relying on assumptions and start working with reality. What usually happens is people discover patterns they didn't expect. They realize they're spending far more on food delivery than they thought. They notice subscriptions they forgot to cancel. They see how often small purchases add up over time. And this isn't about guilt. This isn't about judging yourself for past decisions. It's about clarity. Because clarity gives you control. Once you have that data, the next step is cutting the unnecessary. And this is where you need to be honest with yourself. Not everything needs to go. In fact, trying to cut everything usually backfires because it makes the process feel restrictive and unsustainable. Instead, focus on removing the things that don't add real value. Ask yourself a simple question. If this expense disappeared tomorrow, would my life actually get worse in a meaningful way? If the answer is no, it's gone. Subscriptions you barely use, impulse purchases that don't last, upgrades you didn't need, habits that became automatic without intention. These are the easiest wins because removing them doesn't reduce your quality of life, it improves your financial position instantly. Then there are the expenses that do matter, but can still be optimized. This is where most people leave money on the table. They accept prices as fixed when in reality, many of them are flexible. You can negotiate bills, switch providers, find better deals, or simply choose more cost-effective alternatives. The goal isn't to eliminate everything, it's to spend smarter. Even something as simple as being intentional with groceries instead of constantly eating out can create a noticeable difference, not because one meal is expensive, but because the habit repeats. And repetition is what drives your financial outcome. The same applies to transportation, entertainment, and everyday spending. Small adjustments consistently applied create space in your budget. Now here's where things start to shift. When you cut and optimize your spending, you create a gap. And that gap is powerful. Because before that money was disappearing, now it's available, it's visible, it has potential. But if you don't assign it a purpose, it will slowly drift back into old habits. So instead of letting that happen, you redirect it intentionally. Every dollar you save from cutting unnecessary expenses should be given a job. Whether that's building an emergency fund, paying off debt, or starting to invest, the key is that it moves you forward. Money without direction gets wasted. Money with a purpose builds momentum. At this stage, something important starts to happen psychologically. You begin to feel in control, not because you suddenly have a huge amount of money, but because you understand where it's going. And that understanding changes how you make decisions. You stop spending reactively and start acting with intention. This is also where discipline becomes easier, because you're no longer guessing. You're not hoping things work out. You're seeing progress, even if it's small. And progress creates motivation. When you notice that your account balance is improving, that your expenses are lower, that you're actually keeping more of what you earn, it reinforces the behavior. Another key part of optimization is eliminating friction. The harder something is to manage, the less likely you are to stick with it. So simplify your system. Use one method to track spending. Keep your categories clear and straightforward. Don't overcomplicate it with too many rules or conditions. The goal is consistency, not perfection. Because perfection is what stops most people. They try to build the ideal budget, the perfect system, the flawless plan, and when they can't maintain it, they quit entirely. But progress doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. Even if you're only improving by a small percentage each week, over time that compounds into a significant change. And here's something that often gets overlooked. Taking control of your money is not just about numbers, it's about behavior. It's about becoming someone who pays attention, who makes intentional choices, who understands the impact of small decisions. Because once that identity shifts, your actions follow naturally. You start questioning purchases instead of automatically making them. You start comparing options instead of defaulting to convenience. You start thinking long-term instead of focusing only on the present moment. And these shifts might seem subtle, but they fundamentally change your financial trajectory. The reality is, most people don't have a money problem, they have a control problem. They earn, they spend, and they hope there's something left at the end. But hope is not a strategy. Control is. And control doesn't come from restriction, it comes from awareness and intention. It comes from knowing exactly what's happening with your money and deciding in advance what you want it to do. When you reach that point, your finances stop feeling overwhelming, they stop feeling unpredictable. Instead, they become something you manage with confidence because you've seen the numbers, you've made the adjustments, and you've proven to yourself that change is possible within a short period of time. And once you realize that you can control your spending, everything else becomes easier. Increasing income becomes more effective. Saving becomes more consistent. Investing becomes more meaningful. Because the foundation is solid, and without that foundation, nothing else lasts. Most people focus on increasing their income, but they completely ignore the other side of the equation, and that's where they lose. Because it doesn't matter how much more money you make if your expenses rise at the same speed. That's how people end up earning more than ever and still feeling broke. The goal is not just to earn more, it's to create a gap between what you earn and what you spend, and then protect that gap aggressively. So the strategy is simple, but it requires discipline. You increase your income while keeping your expenses fixed. Not temporarily, not loosely, but intentionally. Because that gap you create is where all your financial progress comes from. That gap is what allows you to save, invest, and build something meaningful over time. The first thing to understand is that increasing your income is more within your control than you think. Most people treat their income like it's fixed, like it's something determined entirely by their job or their employer. But that's only one piece of the picture. There are multiple ways to increase what you earn, and most of them don't require years of preparation. You can start with what you already have, your current skills, your current job, your current network. There are opportunities within those areas that often go unnoticed. Negotiating your salary is one of them. Many people avoid it because it feels uncomfortable. But even a small increase can have a significant impact over time. And the worst case scenario is usually just hearing no, which leaves you exactly where you started. Then there's the option of adding an additional income stream. This doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming at the beginning. It can be as simple as offering a skill you already have, taking on freelance work, tutoring, selling a service, or even reselling items for profit. The goal isn't to build a massive business overnight, it's to create an additional flow of income that increases your total earnings. What matters most is speed and action. Overthinking is what keeps people stuck. They spend weeks or months trying to figure out the perfect idea, the perfect plan, the perfect execution. Meanwhile, someone else starts with something simple, imperfect, and begins earning immediately. Momentum comes from doing, not from planning endlessly. Even an extra 10 to 20% increase in your income can change everything if your expenses remain the same. Because that extra money doesn't get absorbed into your lifestyle, it gets redirected toward progress. It accelerates your savings, speeds up debt repayment, and allows you to invest sooner. Now, this is where lifestyle inflation becomes the biggest threat. The moment people start earning more, they feel justified in spending more. A slightly nicer car, more frequent dining out, better clothes, more subscriptions, and individually, each upgrade seems reasonable. After all, you're earning more, so why not enjoy it? The problem is, these increases stack up quickly. And before you realize it, your new higher income becomes your new normal, with no real improvement in your financial position. You're working harder, earning more, but not actually getting ahead. So the key is to lock in your current lifestyle. You decide that your standard of living stays the same for the next 3 months, regardless of how much extra you earn. This creates a powerful effect because now every additional dollar has a purpose. It's no longer competing with new expenses, it's being directed entirely toward building your future. This doesn't mean you can never upgrade your lifestyle. It means you delay it. You earn the upgrade by first strengthening your financial position. Because once you have savings, investments, and stability, those upgrades become sustainable instead of risky. Another important part of increasing income is improving your earning potential. This is where you invest time into building skills that are valuable in the market. Not random skills, but ones that can directly translate into higher income. This could be anything from learning digital skills, improving communication, gaining technical expertise, or becoming better at selling and negotiating. The advantage of skill building is that it compounds over time. Unlike a one-time income boost, a valuable skill can continue generating higher earnings for years. It increases your leverage, your opportunities, and your ability to adapt in a changing environment. At the same time, you need to be mindful of how you manage the extra income, because earning more is only half the equation. The other half is what you do with it, and this is where having a clear plan matters. Every additional dollar should be assigned intentionally. A portion can go toward building an emergency fund, which gives you security and reduces financial stress. Another portion can go toward paying off high-interest debt, which immediately improves your financial position. And once those are in place, the rest can be directed toward investments that grow over time. This structured approach ensures that your increased income translates into real progress, not just higher spending. It keeps you focused on long-term outcomes instead of short-term gratification. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you successfully increase your income while controlling your expenses. You start to see yourself differently. You realize that you're not limited to a fixed earning potential. You understand that with effort and strategy, you can create opportunities for yourself. This mindset is powerful because it removes the feeling of being stuck. It replaces it with a sense of control and possibility. And once you have that, you're more likely to continue taking action, exploring new opportunities, and pushing your limits. At the same time, keeping your expenses fixed builds discipline. It teaches you to separate wants from needs, to prioritize long-term goals over immediate satisfaction, and to resist the urge to upgrade every aspect of your life the moment you can afford it. This balance between increasing income and controlling expenses is what creates real financial growth. Not extreme frugality, not endless hustle, but a combination of both applied strategically. And within a 3-month period, this approach can produce noticeable results. You can see your savings grow, your debt decrease, and your investments begin to build. More importantly, you can see that your actions are directly influencing your outcomes. That clarity, that cause and effect relationship is what keeps you consistent. Because you're no longer guessing. You're executing a plan that you know works. Most people wait for a big opportunity to change their finances. A higher paying job, a major breakthrough, a lucky break. But the reality is, small increases in income combined with controlled expenses can create significant progress in a short period of time. And once you experience that progress, once you see how quickly things can improve when you manage both sides of the equation, it becomes much easier to stay committed and continue building forward. Most people rely on motivation to manage their money, and that's exactly why they fail. Because motivation is inconsistent. Some days you feel disciplined, focused, ready to make the right decisions. Other days you don't. And if your financial progress depends on how you feel in the moment, it's only a matter of time before you fall off track. That's why the real solution isn't working harder or trying to stay motivated. It's building systems that handle your finances automatically. A system removes the need to constantly think about what to do with your money. It replaces decision-making with structure. Instead of asking yourself every month how much you should save, how much you should spend, or whether you should invest, those decisions are already made in advance. Your job is simply to set it up once and let it run. The first part of building a system is deciding where your money should go. Every dollar you earn needs a clear destination before it even arrives. Not after you've spent it, not at the end of the month, but up front. This means dividing your income into specific categories like essentials, savings, and investments. The exact percentages don't have to be perfect, but they need to be intentional. Essentials cover your fixed living costs, things like housing, utilities, food, and transportation. These are the non-negotiables, and ideally you want to keep them as efficient as possible, not cutting them to the extreme, but making sure they're not unnecessarily high. Then comes savings, which is your safety net. This is where you build your emergency fund, the money that protects you from unexpected situations. Without this, even a small financial setback can undo months of progress. The goal is to gradually build a reserve that can cover several months of expenses, giving you stability and peace of mind. After that comes investing, which is what drives long-term growth. This is the money that works for you instead of you working for it. And the key here is consistency. It's not about investing a large amount once, it's about investing regularly over time. Even small contributions can grow significantly when given enough time. Once you've decided how your money should be allocated, the next step is automation. This is where the system becomes powerful. Instead of manually transferring money every month, you set up automatic transfers that happen as soon as your income is received. A portion goes directly into savings, another portion into investments, and the rest remains available for your expenses. This approach removes friction. It eliminates the temptation to spend money that was meant for saving or investing, because by the time you see your available balance, those priorities have already been taken care of. You're left with what you can actually spend, which makes budgeting simpler and more effective. Automation also creates consistency. Even if you're busy, distracted, or not feeling motivated, your system continues to operate. Money keeps moving in the right direction without requiring constant attention. And over time, this consistency is what produces results. Another important element of a strong system is simplicity. The more complicated your setup is, the harder it becomes to maintain. You don't need multiple accounts for every small category or a complex tracking method that takes hours to manage. A few well-defined accounts and clear rules are enough. For example, one account for your main expenses, one for savings, and one for investments can be sufficient. As long as the flow of money is clear and automated, the system works. The goal is to reduce mental effort, not increase it. At the same time, your system should be flexible enough to adapt. Life changes, income changes, expenses change, so while the structure remains consistent, the details can be adjusted when needed. This might mean increasing your investment contributions as your income grows or reallocating funds based on new priorities. What matters is that the system evolves with you without losing its core function, which is directing your money intentionally. Another powerful aspect of automation is that it helps you avoid emotional decisions. Money is often tied to emotions, stress, excitement, fear, and those emotions can lead to impulsive choices that don't align with your long-term goals. But when your financial actions are automated, you reduce the influence of those emotions. You're not deciding in the moment whether to save or invest. It's already happening. You're not debating whether you can afford something because your spending account already reflects what's available. This separation creates clarity and reduces mistakes. Over time, this system builds momentum. Each month, your savings grow, your investments increase, and your financial position strengthens. And because it happens automatically, it feels almost effortless compared to constantly managing everything manually. There's also a shift in how you view money. Instead of something you need to control actively all the time, it becomes something that flows through a structure you've designed. You become the architect of your financial system rather than someone reacting to it. And this is where long-term growth really begins. Because once your system is in place, you can focus on improving it instead of constantly fixing problems. You can look for ways to increase your contributions, optimize your investments, and refine your strategy. Even small improvements can have a big impact when applied consistently over time. Increasing your savings rate by a few percent, investing a little more each month, reducing unnecessary expenses slightly further. These adjustments compound, just like your money does. One of the biggest advantages of having a system is that it frees up your mental energy. You're no longer thinking about money all the time, worrying about whether you're doing the right thing or trying to keep track of every detail manually. That mental space can be used for more productive activities, like increasing your income, building skills, or simply enjoying your life without financial stress constantly in the background. And perhaps most importantly, a system makes your progress sustainable. Anyone can manage their money well for a short period of time through intense effort, but maintaining that level of effort indefinitely is unrealistic. Systems solve that problem by making good financial behavior the default, not the exception. You don't rise to the level of your motivation, you fall to the level of your systems. And when your system is designed correctly, falling still moves you forward, because at that point your finances are no longer dependent on perfect decisions, they're supported by a structure that consistently works in your favor.